Bam.
So what are you doing?
I'm playing Space Invaders Theranos Edition. It's a game that was created by a former Theranos employee. The invader in this version of the game is me, along with some Zika viruses. And the machine gun at the bottom of the screen is Theranos' mini lab blood testing device. And the bullets that it's shooting are its little nanotainer vials. You know, it's another one of the crazy twists in this crazy story that has essentially consumed the past 3.5 years of my life. Theranos is a diagnostics startup that was founded in Silicon Valley in 2003, and its product was a device that was going to enable you to run the full range of laboratory tests off just a drop or two of blood from a finger. It was founded by a Stanford dropout, Elizabeth Holmes, in 2003, and she rose to fame about 10 years later in 2013. Graced the covers of magazines, and her company reached a valuation of more than $9 billion. And then I came along, and the Wall Street Journal came along, and we published a story that revealed that the company was actually doing the vast majority of its blood tests on commercial analyzers purchased from third parties. Going on here?
This is what happens when you work to change things, and first they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world.
Investors in the end were defrauded, and patients, the health of patients was jeopardized. Theranos investors did not do what you would consider sufficient due diligence. You need to consider the environment. The environment was an enormous bubble, and incredible sums of money were flowing into the Silicon Valley ecosystem and being really thrown at startups, and Theranos was one of them. And so any investors, you know, that did try to do a little due diligence and ask too many questions were turned down. The other factor here in play is that Elizabeth was an incredibly smart, charismatic, charming young woman.
People don't even know that they have a basic human right to be able to get access to information about themselves and their own bodies.
Her eyes are part of her magic spell. They're part of her charisma. She seems to be able to look at people intently without blinking longer than the average human being can.
And we'd like to see a world in which every person gets access to this type of basic testing.
Her idol was Steve Jobs, and she shared this trait with him, which is that she had an ability to make people suspend disbelief. She has this reality distortion field, just like Steve Jobs. She also has this very deep voice. One employee, this is an anecdote in my book, caught her slipping out of her baritone and was really thrown off by that and realized at that point that she was faking the deep voice.
We really resonate with this concept of better transparency in lab testing.
I mean, I've been a reporter for 20 years, and in all those years I had never encountered the amount of pushback and the amount of resistance and the counterattack, frankly, that I encountered reporting this story. So to give you an idea of how the company and Elizabeth reacted to the publication of my first story, she had been invited to speak at our technology conference. I expected her to push back hard and to come out swinging, but I was stunned by some of the things she said. I simply didn't think that she would go before a public forum and bald-faced lie again and again and again.
At the end of August, FDA did an inspection at Theranos. That being conflated with, is there concerns about our testing methodology, which was what was written in the Wall Street Journal article, is just completely false.
She actually never agreed to be interviewed by me. And so by the time my first story about Theranos was published, I had been trying to interview Elizabeth for 5.5 months. And we're now some 3.5 years later, and Elizabeth Holmes has never agreed to speak with me. I think if I had the opportunity to finally meet with Elizabeth in person today, I would ask her, how were you able to justify putting patients in harm's way? This is fun. I loved Space Invaders growing up. I had an Atari. My favorite game. That and Pac-Man. Oh, stopped. Here we go again.